So when I was at primary school, this little passage follows from where I got into some trouble for breaking the very strict littering rules. So the passage starts. So I quickly returned to being the studious type again. Credulity and innocence can sometimes be positive qualities, though. I hated the competitive sports. My spirit was never in it. But one year I managed to win the race on sports day, and that was down to divine intervention or superstition or my blind belief in my father. He saw how worried I was about the inevitability of being last, so he told me he had some magic running powder that made you go faster. He put it in my running shoes, my gutties, straight out of the talcum tin. I ran like a rocket without a care in the world. There's a boy I see on the way home from school about this time. Hard done by, pinched face, bogies. He's waiting for me at the end of his front garden path. "Do you want to fight?" he says. "No thanks," says I. The thought of knuckle on bone had always made me feel queasy. "Come on," he says, "I'll fight you." "Well," I say, resigning myself, "I'll fight you if you can spell encyclopedia," which was the biggest word I knew. E-N-S, he says. "No, that's wrong," I say, and go on my way unharmed. And every day he's there waiting for me, and every day he spells it wrong. And if he'd ever got it right, I'd have had a queer hiding. He would believe me when I said he was wrong, and I would tell him when he was right, of course. Those were the rules. Granda was a great walker, but it was Auntie Annie who first took us away from the dusty city and up to the Black Mountain, and onto the peat bog that swayed beneath our feet, collecting stray bits of lamb's wool on the way as a cure for the earache. I remember a blue and white sky and bouncing up and down on the grey and green clouds of mosses and lichens. Auntie Annie was very religious, and for me there is still something of the true nature of heaven in this memory of her. On the southeastern side of that mountain, by a track called the Mountain Loney, is a spring that has gushed from a hole in the rock there since ancestral times and before. Ice-cold water from the heart of the mountain. A holy well, but only in the sense that it gave its water freely to the children, of any religion or none, who were drawn to it from all over the city, some pushing their bicycles or carrying smaller children. Unremarked and uncontaminated by religious or commercial concerns, it was just there, and how we loved it. We would quench our thirst to the full, and then fill our empty lemonade bottles or plastic canteens with its freezing waters. For me, that spring up the Mountain Loney provides the most poignant and melancholy metaphor of the troubled time that followed. In the 1970s, after the killing had started, I returned there, looking for the best of my childhood, I suppose, and found that someone had drilled holes in the rock and bolted a rusty pipe to take all the water for themselves. It seemed then that in all that part of Ireland, instead of the pure cold water of my childhood, blood had begun to flow, like some perverse and evil inversion of the Christian rites, that were now themselves warped and hijacked as completely as they were in the Crusades to the cause of murder and hatred. William Blake wrote that war is energy enslaved, and for me that rusty pipe symbolised the damming over time of the potential for good and its transmutation into the divisive and destructive force that exploded through the body of that mouldering Victorian city and bloodied forever the lives of those who lived there. Despite my unwitting attempts to put him off the track, Norman had persevered with his inquiries into the making of babies. He had older brothers and began to acquire snippets of information, like it is called sex, because the boy lies on top of the girl like an X, and to make a baby you spit in her mouth. We laugh in disgusted delight at it all. But many questions were still unanswered. One day, while we were up in the big field by the school railings, Erica Mahoney, an older girl by at least 2 years, decided to enlighten us all. I remember that she was perched on top of the railings. Babies, she declared, were made when the man's horse goes into the woman's stable. Ah, we nodded wisely, as though we understood perfectly. And that was it for another while.